A previous video I shared how my SD card had failed. Well, before it failed, I had filmed this video and I managed to save the video because I had started to edit it. And so since it was in the editing software, I didn't lose it. But the sound quality is beyond atrocious. It was strange it didn't show up that way until after the SD card failed. But now when I play it, well, if you enjoy nails on a chalkboard, then you would enjoy the sound on this video track. But for that reason, I deleted the sound and I'm recording over it. So you'll notice that the actual video content doesn't match with what I'm saying, but that's the reason why. So to begin, about maybe a decade ago or so, I saw a video, possibly before I even moved out here, by Marjorie Wildcraft. And she was talking about fertility of the soil and how important that is for the success of your garden or whatever you're growing. And in that video, she shared the reason she got geese. And she had a big fenced-in area where the geese lived, and they would, well, she had those tubs that you mix mortar in, but she used them for the bathing pools for her geese. And geese will poop, they poop constantly. And so that water was full of the fertilizer, the poop from the geese. And every day that she would come out, she would dump it out and then refill the tubs. And she did this constantly. Well, one of the tubs was getting dumped out by, I believe it was a pecan tree, but don't quote me. I could be 100% wrong. But she had a pecan tree that was just, I mean, it was getting this fertility, this poopy water dumped on it daily. And this tree was huge, and the leaves were dark green, and it just looked like a super healthy tree and produced a ton of food, whatever, pecan, oak, whatever it was, it was doing great. I mean, you could see how great this tree looked. Outside this area, only yards away, very close, was another tree, identical species of tree. The leaves were much paler. The tree was much smaller. It was noticeable, the difference in these two trees. The only difference, because they both got equal amount of water from the sky, same amount of sun, same, soil type. The Marjorie Wildcraft only lives maybe a 3-hour drive from me in the hill country near Austin, and so she's going to have maybe not as rocky a soil as me, but it's going to be the same, similar soil type with cedar trees and things like that. So the only difference between these two trees is one had access to this fertility, this goose poopy water, and one didn't. That was the only difference. And yet it produced a huge difference to the lives of those trees. And I never forgot that video. And it has really impacted. It's the reason I got geese in the first place. And there have been times where I have tried to share the poopy goose water, collected it and dumped it at other places. I've moved the tubs a couple times for very short periods of time. But honestly, where they are located in this video, it's very close to the primary access for outside water. And so it usually stays there. Well, that area really doesn't need a lot of fertility. And it's gotten a ton. So this spring, summer, I decided to plant squash, melons, the kinds of plants that take up a huge amount of area over in this chicken yard. I had it partially fenced already for a different reason years ago, and I just reattached the fence and got it all situated, basically to keep the chickens and other, goats out, and ducks and geese, to keep everybody out. And in this area that I'm showing you right now in the video, I planted all these vining crops. And I grew pumpkin. I planted watermelon, didn't get any. Planted cantaloupe, didn't get any. I mean, I planted, let's see, spaghetti squash, got a few. Planted a bunch of stuff. And I had moderate success. I got some spaghetti squash. I got a couple pumpkins. But it didn't do that great. And I'm assuming it's because, there's been a lot of goats and chickens. They've been in there pooping off and on over the years. But I really don't have a lot of soil in there. It's rocky. And so I decided, after clearing that whole area out, after letting the goats in there to clean it up some, and the chickens in there to clean it up some, to literally move the bathing pools for the ducks and geese into this fenced area. I opened up the fence, which was just being held with baling wire or twine, so the birds can all get in there. I let the goats in there for a little bit. But after videotaping this, I went and I moved, I dumped out, cleaned out the bathing pools, tubs for the geese and ducks, and I moved them in here. And at least for the winter time, that's where they're going to stay. Probably we'll move them out in spring and close up and try planting. But that's what I decided to do to help enrich, really fertilize this area. Take advantage of that wonderful propy water, that fertility that will help the soil. And so that's what I did that day. And they've been there ever since. And every day the geese and ducks go in there. It took a few days to really get them to realize that's where their bathing pools are. But I'm hoping that come spring I have more fertility, I have richer soil, and that I can plant some, pumpkins and squash and have a better garden this year. On top of that, I decided, in the last few years, I have been raking leaves up in town. Now, in my place, I really don't get much leaves. Mountain cedar, also called ash juniper, it's needles. It does not drop its leaves. I've got a few oak trees, but honestly, I do not have leaves on my property. Very few. Well, there's a couple nonprofits. The senior center is one of them. Drops a ton of leaves. And so I go there every week, a couple times a week, and I rake up all their leaves, bag them, bring them home, and dump them in there. And in past years, I've been dumping them in the vegetable garden. I have literally filled up one of the garden beds, the raised one has the rock wall. I've doubled the amount of soil in there by adding leaves and water from the goose pools and rabbit poop and goat poop and hay, just letting it compost in there. I've literally doubled the amount of soil in there. And I really don't need a lot there. There's other places in the garden I could have some soil buildup, would be helpful. But I've decided, we get some pretty good winds occasionally, and the leaves would just blow away if I just put them out in the field. But this area, the chicken yard, is totally fenced in. And I have actually started putting the leaves, just dumping them in there. And then the chickens go in there, the geese go in there. There's been one of the trees I've been raking up has these huge acorns, a walnut tree. Not a walnut tree, a oak tree, dumps this huge acorns. And I've seen a goose try to eat one of those acorns. It was comical. But I've also fed, separated the acorns and fed them to the goats who figured out how to eat them. So it's been a win-win situation. But I'm hoping between the leaves and all the goose water and the chickens eating the bugs in there and pooping in there, and just all this added fertility to that one area, that come spring, the soil there'll be more soil in there, and that things will grow better. Oh, another thing I've been doing is, while I'm waiting for these pools to fill up, see here, I've already moved the pools and the geese are taking baths. But it takes a while to fill up all these pools. And I've just been picking up rocks, what I can easily pick up, and throwing them in a wheelbarrow on the other side of the fence and moving them someplace else. Trying to make this area less rocky and more fertile, more soil. And so I challenge you, as winter is starting, almost here, pretty much is here in many areas of the country, to think about what areas you may have, what you can do now to increase the fertility, to produce soil. What are you doing to compost? What are you doing to add fertility to your garden and other areas where you may be wanting to plant? It may be opening your garden up and letting your chickens get in there, or if you have ducks or geese, letting them in there. Whatever it is, think about and start preparing now what you can do so that come spring, you have better soil, you have more fertility in your vegetable garden, because it does make a difference. And if you don't have any animals now, just keep what I've shared about the tree and goose water that Marjorie Wildcraft shared in that video. If you've been thinking about getting ducks, or you've been thinking about getting geese, or even just chickens can add a lot of fertility, though. Different poop, like chicken poop, is very hot, and you can't put that straight in your garden. You can burn your crops. Whereas rabbit and goat poop are cold, and you can put them directly in your garden on your plants immediately. Just think about those things and prepare. Maybe you've been thinking about getting rabbits. Now's the time to maybe act. Whatever it is, start doing things today. Put some action in, take action today of what you can do over the winter to improve the soil, the fertility of your soil in your garden. So thanks for, listening to this. I hope this sparks some imagination of things you hadn't thought about and might want to do. And you have a wonderful day, and hope you get it. What I've shared today will make for you to have a better garden next year. Take care. And if you liked what you heard today, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and hit the bell for notification. And thank you so much for listening to this entire video. You have a wonderful day.